So, Hare Krishna, everyone, for taking your time off. Whoever is here today, thank you for joining and giving me an opportunity to share chapter 8, which is one of my favorite chapters. It's a chapter which talks about death. In the material world, a highly forbidden topic. People don't like to talk about death, although, that is the only certainty, something which is certain, which will come to each one of us is death. And still, people don't want to talk about it. So, this chapter 8 will give us, Krishna will explain to us in great detail in answer to Arjuna's questions. We cannot begin the class without paying our respectful obeisances to the beautiful deities of Sri Radha Govinda temple at ISKCON Mangalore, from where, because of whom, because of the temple, we are here today together to discuss this, journey, to go on this journey completely free of cost. So it is an understanding Bhagavad Gita in 18 days. ISKCON Radha Govinda Temple, Mangalore. These are the deities. Let's pray to the Gurus. Om Ajnana Timran Dasit Nananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Shri Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine. नामस्ते सारस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारणे निर्विशेषाय शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधरा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे हरे. I hope everybody is chanting at least one round, and I'm sure there are some of you who are chanting more, because I can see that in this class there are many devotees who are already into Krishna consciousness, and I think much more knowledgeable than I am. Thank you for the opportunity to share what I know and to listen to me patiently. So again, I want to pay my gratitude and obeisances to the founder Acharya, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, for whom I am always feeling unending admiration and gratitude. His disciple, His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Guru Maharaj, and his disciple, Temple President, His Grace Namnishta Das Prabhu, and my Guru Aishwarya Mataji, because of whose kindness and faith, I'm able to take this class. So, chapter 8 is called Akshara Brahma Yoga. It's called Akshara Brahma Yoga, and it is also called Attaining the Supreme. So something which is how it tells us how we can attain the Supreme. The key learnings in this chapter 8 will be how to attain the Supreme, that is Krishna. What is the final exam? So in the material world, we have final exams. We have all these, every class, one final exam, then the board exam, then the graduation exam, and whatnot. It goes on coming. But the real exam is what do we remember at the time of death, and how we actually prepare. Most people don't prepare at all, and they just fear death when it is approaching, or they suddenly realize that they have wasted their life at the end of it, when they can't even they can't even chant because they are sick and old, and there's no way they can pursue their spiritual journey. Now it's too late. And the final part of chapter 8 will tell us how to practically perform this, how to practically perform bhakti and be prepared for our death. So the first part, again, a little bit more, if we is to categorize a chapter, it is because of Arjuna's question based on the last two verses of chapter 7. When Krishna was speaking, using these terminologies which were a little unfamiliar, or rather Arjuna wanted it to be clarified for our benefit. So he asks questions in 8.1 and 2. And then in 8.3 and 4, we have answers to Arjuna's questions. And then in 8.5 to 8.8, the most important question that Arjuna asks is that how do I remember you at the time of death? So for that, Krishna takes special time to explain. He explains most of the chapter related to that, but 8.5 to 8.8, he will focus on that. And then Krishna will talk about remembering Krishna by Yoga Mishra Bhakti and remembering Krishna by pure bhakti. So one is in which you are doing, different sorts of meditation, other practices, and it is mixed with bhakti, and one where it is only bhakti. No other forms of yoga are attached to it. It's pure bhakti. And then Krishna will try to lure us actually. He's trying to tell us, come home. I'll explain to you how beautiful the spiritual world is. And he's actually, like an advertisement. He's actually tempting us. Come on, it's enough. This material world has got nothing. Earlier, he already told us it's a dukhalayam. And now he describes how beautiful the spiritual world is. And we really feel like going back. We understand that Krishna wants us to go back, and it is his fond love letter for us to go back. So we understand also supremacy of bhakti in attaining Krishna in the last, by the end of our journey in this world, material world. So the first part, let's see from 8.1 to 4, which is Krishna's questions and answers. Krishna inquires, O my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the self? What are the fruitive activities? What is this material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Please explain this to me. And how does this Lord of Sacrifice live in the body? Which part does he live, O Madhusudana? And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? All the remaining questions are fine, but the last question is the most important one. And this is because in the chapter 7, last two verses, 7.29 and 30, these words were used. Jara marana mokshaya mama shritya yatanti ye te brahma. So Brahma is used here. Tadvidu kritsnam adhyatmam karma chakhilam. Again, adhyatma is used. Sadhi bahutadhi daivam mam sadhi yajnam. So adhi yajnam and adhi daivam. Cha ye vidu. All these terms are coming, unfamiliar, not regularly used terms. Prayana kale picha mam te viduryukta chetasaha. So Krishna, now Arjuna wants clarifications. He's listening very carefully. He's a wonderful student and he listens very carefully. And within the next two verses, Krishna actually explains. He says that Brahman is a spirit, basically the jiva, indestructible living entity, about which in chapter 2 he had explained in great detail. Then he talks about Adhyatma. So Adhyatma, Krishna will explain, is the nature of this self. So it is a self which is the controller of the body, and the Adhyatma refers to the nature of this self. And then karma. What is karma? Karma is basically the fruit of activities which will definitely lead to the respective, result, either positive or negative. But karma is usually the positive, results, because vikarma is the term used for the negative ones. The actions which lead us to get another material body is basically karma. So karma is action and the result. That is what karma is. And Krishna explains that in simple terms. And adhibhuta. So the word bhuta is like, the physical or material manifestation. So the material nature is referred to as adhibhuta. And adhidaiva, Krishna explains, because the word daiva also gives us an indication. It's about the supreme demigods, all the demigods which are empowered by the Lord. The universal form itself includes all these demigods. So Adi Daiva includes the entire universal form in which all the demigods are there. So that is Adi Daiva. Adi Yajna is referring to the Lord who enjoys the sacrifices done by everyone. And where does that aspect of the Lord live? It resides in everyone's heart. So Adi Yajna is basically Paramatma, the God who is present. Krishna himself is present in everybody's heart in the form of Paramatma. And he is referred to as Adhi Yajna because he's a Lord of the sacrifice. He's a person who enjoys the sacrifice. And which part of our body does the Adhi Yajna or the Paramatma reside? It's in the heart region. Those who do this Ashtang Yoga or the initial steps also, when they meditate for a long, long time, they are able to sense the Paramatma in the heart, and they feel such a lot of bliss that they feel that that's it, the journey is over. But actually, it's not over. It's not over till you get prem bhakti towards the Lord Himself as a person. Till you don't move from impersonal to personal, the journey is not over. How to remember Krishna at the time of death? The only way is practice. And when do you practice? Throughout your life. When do you start practicing? As early as possible. Best time in the womb itself. So that is basically, some of us are quite, I'm personally really late. All my childhood and my youth, I used to, randomly read the Gita, but I never really understood what, it all is meaning. And I never could relate it to the world and think that it actually consists of all the answers. So I only understood when I heard from Namnishta Prabhu in his classes, and thereafter from various classes like Ravi Prabhu and so many other Prabhujis and Matajis. So in 8.3, Krishna is explaining that the indestructible, transcendental living entity is the Brahman, which is the self. And his eternal nature is called the self. So the living entity is called Brahman, and the nature of that living entity is called the self, which is Adhyatma. An action pertaining to the development of these material bodies is called, one body goes and takes another body. Which action is causing this movement of the soul from one body to another body? Which action? That is karma. The karma is leading to this rebirth. So these fruitive activities are called karma. And the law of transmigration of the soul is actually already explained in chapter 2. But again, it's explained here in chapter 8, where the soul passes from one body to the other. Like I told you, this is about death, this chapter. So it will discuss, without transmigration, you can't discuss death. So the law of transmigration of the soul from one body to the other, based on the desires and acquired merits, is seen as strict dictatorship of the Lord by some. Some people feel that the Lord is being very strict. He's being very cruel by giving us the punishments as per our, previous birth. On the contrary, the truth is very distinct from this assumption. The Lord is Suhridam Sarvabhutana. The Lord is never really desiring to punish us or to make us come again. He's actually calling us back again and again. But he will never force us. Like I told you, he will only, call us and ask us to come, and we have to go willingly with complete understanding of what is it, how majestic, how brilliant it is to actually go back. And he's teaching us in the Gita, which very few of us come to even read. If one develops taste in virtuous activities, then the Lord will grant his wish, and then he gets a birth that will enable him to do better activities, which is either birth in richer families or among the demigods, etc., etc. That is, there are so many options. We never know all the intricacies, but we know that when we develop taste for virtuous activities, that is when we are in Sattvagun, and then we move to Shuddh Sattvagun. So there is, the higher, other than the three modes of material nature, when we rise above all the three modes, the modes, if some of you are there here who are new and who don't understand modes, they will be explained in more detail in the subsequent chapters. They basically, its nature is made up of three modes. And Krishna says that all three modes are binding. They make us, come back. Only when you have Shuddh Sattva, which is the pure form, where you are not attached at all, that is called the highest form where you're free from bondage, which frees you from bondage. So let's look at the last paragraph. While if one develops tendency to act viciously, if somebody has a tendency to act viciously, that's there in Tamogun, the Lord grants his wishes too. To protect the fellow from punishment, he gives him a suitable form where the activities are natural to him. The tree is an example. The example of the tree is usually given when somebody is naked and who is all the time, wanting to expose himself, or he doesn't want to clothe himself. In the human form, we need to clothe ourselves. But if somebody doesn't want to, then they are granted the tree form. So you must have heard now, actually on 20th, around 20th, the famous the Damodar month or the Kartik month is starting, which we have the beautiful story of Lord Krishna, who is as a little baby, he's very naughty, and he is punished by Yashoda, and she's trying to tie him to a big, grinding thing, thing. I think it's called Oakley in Hindi. And she keeps trying to tie him, and she fails. And at last, Krishna, doesn't want to trouble his mother more, and Krishna is tied to that. by his stomach. That's why it's called Dam Odar. Dam means rope and Udar means stomach. He's tied by his stomach. And Krishna, little Krishna, such a heavy thing he has, a grinding stone, and he's literally, he pulls it and pulls it. Of course, he knows what he's doing because he's a lord, and he comes between two trees, and then he, pushes, he goes between them and he pushes hard till the trees fall down. And these trees were actually Kubera's sons who had been cursed to become trees. Why were they cursed? Because they were enjoying with some women, with some apsaras, the beautiful damsels of heaven. They were enjoying and having a great. They were intoxicated because they had all the riches and luxuries. They were intoxicated and they forgot that that they need to be in devotion. That's also, that is a part of of their duty. And when Narada walked by, although the apsaras they quickly covered themselves, these two brothers, they were just not bothered. They were just least bothered. So Narada said that these boys who, not even covering themselves, so shameless, let them be trees. And then they are so sorry with that curse that they were cursed to become trees. They were feeling so miserable about it that they pleaded and requested. And Narada, of course, Narada's curses are always actually blessings because they were just wasting their life and they were wasting, they were just wasting away. So by this curse was actually a blessing because later on when Krishna comes and he, saves them and they go back and they get the original form and they're very regretful and they thereafter become devotees. They continue their devotional journey and they, they remember that this is a lesson. So that is what happens if one is whatever. There are so many different things, the results which I had, I think, explained before also. So you will get the body as per what you are wishing. Even if you're wishing bad things, Krishna will give that suitable body where it becomes natural for them to do those kind of things. So in 8.4, Krishna further explains that the physical nature is known to be endlessly mutable. It is constantly changing. And the universe is a cosmic form of the Supreme Lord. And I am that Lord represented as a super soul dwelling in the heart of every embodied being. So here he explains about what is Adi Yajna, which is the Paramatma form of the Lord. So once he has answered these questions, Krishna will further go ahead to describe in more detail about what happens at the time of death. He will spend some time to explain that. I will be coming to this to describe this picture also. It's there in other slides in this chapter. This is Ajamila, and how at the time of death he calls out the word Narayana, actually referring to his son. But some great scholars say that he does remember Narayana as per his, early life. He was a devotee, and later he did a lot of sinful activities because he was tempted by a small moment of weakness. And so what happens? The Yamadutas, they come and they pull by the neck, like they pull out with ropes, and that's very painful. And at the same time, because he called out, although he had done so many sins, because he called out Narayana at the time of death by Krishna's grace, they also arrive over there. And the Vishnu Dutas and the Yama Dutas, they have like a, they keep arguing with each other that, the Yamaduta say he's an extremely sinful person, and then the Vishnu Duta say, but once he says the name of the Lord at the time of death, you can't touch them. So the Yamadutas go back, and when they tell Yama, Yama says, of course you can't touch them. The moment someone remembers Krishna at the time of his death, you can't touch them. And so Ajamila then goes ahead. He lives for several more years, in which he realizes, how much he wasted his life. We'll be doing the story in the same slide once more. Little more detail we'll do it. And so what we are coming to know here is, if you remember Krishna at the time of death, then you will be taken to the Krishna Loka, or Krishna's world. There are lots of spiritual planets in the Krishna Loka, in the Golok Vrindavan. There are so many, and you will be free, and you will be free from both your material body and your subtle body, both your material or gross body and your subtle body, and you'll be in your pure spirit soul form. And the spirit soul has its transcendental senses, and it can, it can kind of, the description of the spiritual world is given later in this slide, so we'll come to more detail there. So 8.5 says, Anta kale chamam eva smaran muktva kalevaram yah prayati samadbhavam yati nasyatra samshaya. There is absolutely no doubt that if you remember me at the time of your death and not remember, oh, what will happen to my bank balance? Oh, what will happen to my house? Oh, my children. Oh, my child is not married. Oh, my son doesn't have a job. Oh, what's going to happen to my husband or my wife? And if you're going to think of all that, you will go to some form which is related to whatever you're worrying about. They say that if a man is thinking about very much about his wife at the time of his death, he will get a woman's form in his next body. Or there is somebody who is so bothered about his house or something, and then but he has done many sinful activities. He will be born as an insect or an animal in that house because he's so attached to that house. So that is what. But if you remember, by practice throughout your life, if you remember Krishna, it is so beautiful that you don't need to come back into this miserable material world where birth is painful, death is painful, old age is very difficult, death and the diseases are so painful, and people are all cheaters, and you don't need to deal with any of this, and you won't feel, actually the soul is feeling like it's in a jail in this body. But we don't feel, we think that we're enjoying. The soul is waiting to go back. It's just waiting, to go back home. So whoever remembers at the time of death Krishna and quits his body at once, he says, he will attain my nature. What is Krishna's nature? Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, and he is the super soul. And we are all the Jivatmas, and we all, we are like a small drop in an ocean. We all have the same qualities as Krishna, but in a very much small degree compared to the ocean. Krishna is like all the six opulences in the highest degree, but we are also in small degree, we are also got those Krishna's nature. So when we are free from this contamination of this gross body and subtle body, yesterday we saw that the gross body is made up of the 5 elements and mind, intelligence, and false ego. And then that is a subtle body. So these 8 things together, we will become free from that and we will escape. So he says, and we will attain the Lord's nature. And Krishna says of this, there is no doubt. In this picture, we can see Bhishma. So we are able to see how Bhishma, at the time of death, he is in a bed of arrows, and he is, Krishna plans in such a way, knowing that Bhishma is a highly elevated devotee. Krishna will actually make arrangement. We don't need to worry. If we simply become devotees and we are constantly striving to think of Krishna with great love, Krishna will make necessary arrangements for us to remember him, however difficult it may be. So when Krishna knows it is time for Bhishma to die, he actually comes there and he brings everybody over there, and they have a lot of discussions, and and then Bhishma has the extreme blessing to just look at the beautiful Sham Sundar form of Krishna as he departs his body. That is the blessing that he gets. Here we are just discussing with a little bit of going away from the Bhagavad Gita. We are going to look at this verse which is from the Mahabharata, which tries to explain how people forget what is death. So this question is being asked by Yamaraja. There is a story. I think I won't go into detail because I would like to finish this class early so I can attend my Bhakti Shastri class, as I told you. I'd like to go through this chapter a little quickly today if possible, and then we will go through question answers and other things related on that tomorrow. So in this we can see in the Mahabharata, Vana Parva 3.313.116, Yamaraja asks Yudhishthira, what is the most wonderful thing in this world? And this is what Yudhishthira will reply. Yudhishthira says, hundreds of thousands of living entities are constant, are meeting death every moment. But the foolish living being, nonetheless, thinks himself to be deathless. He can see other people dying, but he cannot imagine that he also will die. And he does not prepare for it. How do you prepare? Simply by chanting and remembering the Lord. Simply by doing japa and kirtan. And he doesn't prepare. So this is the most astonishing thing, which, which is the answer which Yudhishthira gives, which is the right answer. And in 8.6, Krishna says, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavan, yam yam vapi smaran bhavam, yajatyante kalevaram tam tamevaiti konte ya sada tad bhava bhavitaha. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that he will attain without fail. So I think those who have been attending my class from the beginning, they must have heard where I have said the story of the King Bharat also. He had, fallen in love. We had, actually not even love, it is called attachment. He got attached to this little dear baby whom he was taking great care of. And at the time of his death also, he was remembering, oh my God, where is the deer gone? And he was looking for the deer, thinking that the deer will not be able to take care of himself. Whereas the Lord takes care of everyone. There is no need to worry so much. And then he therefore has to take the form of a deer in his next birth. So Bharat has reached actually a very high stage in bhakti. The eighth stage he had already reached. Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajan Kriya, Anartha Nivritti, Nishtha, which is firm faith, Ruchi, Asakti, attachment to God, Bhava, tears of love. But before reaching the final stage of Prema, he had to return. He fell down from his highly elevated position and he had to be born as a baby deer. So that is just a proof. It's given in scriptures, and these are not just made up stories. This actually is there. If you have a little faith, not a little faith. You should have complete faith that this is what the scripture is given us, and it is reality. So when you leave your body, whatever you think of, you will attain that. That's what Krishna said in 8.6. 8.7, Krishna explains. तस्मात् सर्वेषु कालेषु मामनुस्मर युध्य च मय्यर्पितमनो बुद्धिर्मामे वैश्यस्य संशयः. So you should always think of me in the form of Krishna. At the same time, you should carry out your duty. He doesn't say, oh, stop all your duties and only sit and think of me. He doesn't say that. Whatever you're doing, everything that you're supposed to do according to your varna ashram, your position, in where you are standing in terms of your varna and ashrama of your life, you have to do all that. With your activities dedicated to me, your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you do your things and then you will surely attain to me. So here there is this picture of Prahlad who would, all his Asura friends are there and he would, tell them all this different, he would tell them all the glories of the Lord and they would all, enjoy that. They would all, be in bhakti. In 8.8, Krishna says, how do you do that? Abhyasa yoga yuktena. You have to meditate by practice, constantly engaging. And you follow the undeviated path, he is sure to reach me. So here we have in this picture Ajamila, who after lots of, there was a tiff between the Yamadutas and Vishnudutas, and then at last they leave him and go away. And then he realizes, and Krishna gives him a second chance. And therefore, you can see that after then, later on, he is taken by Vishnudutas to the Krishna Loka. So this is how Ajamila's fall began. He just saw two people, a prostitute and some other person who were giggling and laughing. And he actually needn't have bothered about it because you're supposed to withdraw your senses from these material pleasures which are temporary. But for a moment, he got carried away and he thought, let me see. What is let me see? There was no need for him. But he just thought, let me see and hear for some time. That is it. That is the fall. Immediately the fall begins. So if you dhyayato Vishyan Punsa, we saw this in chapter 3 or 2, I think. Dhyayato Vishyan Punsa Sange Seshupa Jayate. You just little bit you think or put your attention there, your Sange, you go along with that. So he went along, then he goes to that prostitute. He wastes his whole life. He has many children from that prostitute, makes him do so many wrong things. His whole life is gone. And it's totally wasted. And then at the time of death, fortunately, Krishna makes him, he makes him name his smallest child, whom he begot, maybe at the age of 80 or something. He begot one child and he named him Narayana. And he kept on calling Narayana, Narayana, just because of that remembrance. He was saved by the Vishnu Dutas. At the time of death, he remembered Krishna. The name is so powerful. The name is the Lord himself. That's why I'm saying the name is the Lord himself. So when you're chanting every day, the Lord is there on your tongue. Lord is very merciful. He will come and he will clean. There's so much of impurities and dirt and filth in our mind. Krishna doesn't mind. Once you call him, he will come and sit and he will clean. He will clean everything for you and make you pure. Cheto darpanamarjanam bhava mahadavagni nirvapanam Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadhu Jeevan. Cheto Darpana Arjuna. What does the name do? The dirty mirror it will clean. The big fire of this material world it will vanquish. The name is very powerful. But in this story of Ajamila, we do not learn how he got degraded. Instead, we must learn how to come back to the path of righteousness. That's what we need to learn. And how Krishna gave Ajamila a second chance, because his whole initial part of his life, he was a devotee. Only a moment of sitting and watching those, listening to all the sound of this prostitute and this man brought the downfall for him. So life is preparation and death is examination. In part 3, we see that remembering Krishna by Yoga Mishra Bhakti, the real success in life is Ante Narayana Smriti. The last part of your last moments before you die, you're remembering Krishna. One should meditate upon the Supreme Person as one who knows everything. How do you meditate upon the Lord? He is the one who knows everything. He is the oldest, he is the controller, he is smaller than the smallest, maintainer of everything, beyond all material conception, inconceivable, always a person. He is luminous like the sun, transcendental, and is beyond this material nature. So this verse actually is very beautiful. Kavim Puranam Anushasitaram Manoraniyam Anoraniyamsa Asamanu Samridyaha Sarvasya Dhataram Achintya Rupam Aditya Varnam Tamasah Parastat. So Kavim means, how do you think of Krishna? Krishna tells you exactly what or how we can think of Krishna, how you can think of him. Think of him as a Kavim. Kavim is a knower of everything past, present, and future. That's one of the synonyms in Sanskrit. Puranam is Kavim Puranam is everything is born out of him. He's like the oldest. Puranam is he's the one who is the origin of everything. Everything comes from him. Anushasitaram is he's a controller. Then Anor Aniyamsha is he's a smaller than the smallest. Dhataram, he is the maintainer. He is beyond all material conception. He is Rupam, he is always a person. He is Achintya, he is inconvincible. And Aditya Varnam, he is luminous like the sun. And he is Tamasa Parastat, transcendental beyond this material nature. So there are so many ways you can think of him. So if you just remember this verse, you can constantly think of him. Brahma is always thinking of him. Shiva is always thinking of him. All of these highly elevated, deities are also thinking of, all these highly elevated demigods are also always in meditation. They think of the Lord. So what is happiness? For a kid, it might be that, okay, the exams are over. Yesterday was exam, today it's over, I'm happy. For adults, it may be, oh, Sunday, I don't have to go for work. For a prisoner, the duration when his punishment is over, or someone who is, mindlessly watching TV for some time, he thinks that is happiness. So 0 is no doubt more than -1 or other negative numbers, but is 0 really a big number? So these are all the happiness in this material world is like very, very small compared to the real joy which comes when you are in spiritual enlightenment. So in this world actually filled with miseries and pains, when you get some small moments of painlessness, you think that is true happiness. But happiness is, the Sat Chit Anand, realizing your true self. That is really what is happiness. How to attain the Supreme, Krishna explains, for one who remembers me, I'm easy to obtain because of his constant engagement. And now we look at how we can get pure bhakti. So Krishna says in 8.15, after attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion, they never return to this world of miseries because they attain the highest perfection. So, from the highest planet in the material world, which is where Brahma Loka is the highest planet in the material world, down to the lowest planet, Krishna says everything, all are places of misery. Why? Because birth and death are there everywhere. Only one who comes to Krishna's abode never takes birth. So whether you're going to the lower planets where it is so painful, or to the higher planets where you probably enjoy for some time, or you stay on the earth, it is all painful. So now we are going to see the comparison between material world and spiritual world. So down here we will see in chapter 15 actually, how the spiritual world is the real world and the material world is like a reflection in water. And this water is actually formed because of desire. And the material world begins on top with the Brahma Loka. And we have all these different demigods and all these forms are there. And so the material world, and what is it in comparison to the spiritual world, is explained here. By human calculation, 1,000 ages together make Brahma's one day. 1,000 sets of Chaturyugas make Brahma's one day, and such also is the duration of night. And Brahma's day is manifest, all living entities come into being. And when his night happens, they all get annihilated. But then it's not the end. It's not like they're free and they've finished. No. They have to again, when the Brahma's day will begin, wherever they left off, from there they have to start again. Again and again the day comes, and the hosts of beings are active, and the night falls again, they're dissolved. So this is what happens in the cycle of creation and annihilation. At the beginning, all are there, and then at night, all become unmanifest, and again they will start at whichever point they had left off when the annihilation happened. So, Bhuta Grama Sa Evayam Bhutva Bhutva Praliyate Tatyagame Vasah Partha Prabhavatyahara Agame. Again and again, we have to move. However, this whole circle of birth, death, old age, and disease, which are the real problems in the material world, we can escape and we can go to the spiritual world simply by, in the Kali Yuga, chanting. So there is another, here we can start seeing the description of the beautiful transcendental eternal world. There is another nature which is eternal, transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme, it is never annihilated. When the material world is all collapsing and again coming, and all the universes are collapsing and again coming and again, it's going on in cycles, birth, death, and all this. This eternal, the Lord's world where Krishna resides is never annihilated. It's not disturbed by all this. When all this world is annihilated, still that spiritual world is as it is, undisturbed. How is the spiritual world? Here is a little chart. I think I picked up from Ravi Prabhu's class. Krishna's world is absolute nature. Krishna's abode is not different from him. The whole abode is not different from Krishna himself. It is a place where we are free from birth and death. Krishna's superior energy is opposite to material energy in quality. His superior energy is opposite to the material energy, opposite to the material world, which is full of miseries. And there, it's like Chintamani. You can just fulfill all the desires instantly. And it is all attractive. It is unmanifest to mundane eyes. Our material eyes cannot even perceive it. Transcendental to manifest and unmanifest. This unmanifest and manifest world of material, it is transcendental to that. It is above that. And it is actually everybody's supreme destination. It is a place of no return. Once we go there, it is a place of no return. As long as we understand our duty towards Krishna. Every word in the spiritual world is a song. Imagine, every step is a dance. Let's go to that magical world. And this is a very, very detailed chart of Golok Vrindavan. And I think there are a lot of series of classes shared which discusses the Golok Vrindavan, which is a spiritual world. This is just small glimpses of how beautiful. Once you're in spiritual world, you will be in different relationships with Krishna, and Krishna will not even allow you to remember that he's a Lord, because you'll be in so much bliss enjoying the different relationships which you have, which you had originally before you came down to the material world. We can see in this Mukundamala Sutra written by King Kulashekara, where he describes, the spiritual world. He says, Krishna Tvadiya Pada Pankaja Panjarantam Adyaiva Me Vishatu Manasa Rajahamsa Prana Prayana Samaye Kapavata Pittaihi Kantavarodhana Vidhau Smaranam Kutaste. So before we become too old to have to experience all this and die with that, it's better to die, when we can chant. So here it's saying, oh Krishna, please allow my mind to just immediately yield to your lotus flower-like feet. Just as a flamingo enters into the labyrinth of the lotus flower stems, when at the moment of my last breath, my throat will become constricted by action of the bodily humors, air, bile, and phlegm. And how will I be able to remember you? So that is a strong emotion. We want to remember Krishna. And the supremacy of bhakti is said in the last few verses. You can see the picture of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu there. So it's described in these verses here that yogis and jnanis, when they die in the light, etc., there are a lot of other conditions, they will attain Brahma Jyoti, which is, again within the material world. And then they will have to come back later, back to the world. Karma kandis, they will die in the darkness and then they will attain heavenly planets and then they will return back to the earth. Devotees, they will, whatever time they die, they will go to Krishna Loka, which is what we are all listening and trying to achieve. So yogis, when they die, they're able to check the auspicious, inauspicious time and all that because they will have some siddhis due to their, austerities. But pure devotees who are enjoying in the bliss of just serving Krishna, even in this body, they're already in the transcendental, mode. And so they will, anytime they die, it is auspicious. How can we think of Krishna at the time of death? You should think of Krishna, his form, chanting Hare Krishna. Think about this, the sound of the transcendental sound of the words of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Carry out your duty and dedicate the results to him and keep your mind and intelligence fixed on him. Last verse is the person who accepts the path of devotional service is amazing. It's equal to studying all Vedas, performing sacrifices, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Everything together accumulated, it is equal to the devotional service. At the end, such a person reaches the supreme abode. So this is just some Srimad Bhagavatam, the different ways that we can choose any one or two or all. Ambarish was one devotee who had done all of them. Shravanam, hearing, Kirtanam, chanting, Smaranam, remembering, Padasevanam, serving the Lord, Archanam, worshipping, Vandanam, offering prayers, Dasyam, being a servant like Hanuman. Everything has a picture also. Sakyam, like a friend like Arjuna, and Atma Nivedanam, complete surrender to the Lord. So, my dear king, in Srimad Bhagavatam, although Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults, there's a one good quality, simply chant. You'll be free from material bondage and go to transcendental kingdom. So, with that, we come to the end of chapter 8. 8 questions were asked and answered. Krishna talks about how you remember Krishna at the time of death, which is predominantly what he's saying throughout. He gives a comparison of material and spiritual world, and then he talks once more about the supremacy of bhakti in attaining Krishna. So we come to the end. Vancha kalpataru vyascha kripa sindhuvya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I thank you all once more for being here with me and allowing me the opportunity to discuss chapter 8, and I ask for forgiveness if I have made any mistakes. Hare Krishna, Sakhya. Shall we continue with any further questions tomorrow? We have chapter 9. It is the center of the entire Bhagavad Gita. Out of 18 chapters, the central chapter, which is of most importance, is chapter 9. It's Raja Guhya Yoga, the most confidential knowledge. So I request you all to please join me tomorrow again for chapter 9. Hare Krishna, everybody. May I end the meeting with your permission and blessings? Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.